It's big game season, so I did need to do a top 5 this week. I took a few weeks off from this kind of segment, but with everything going on, I need to make sure we covered everything, so that's why we get another top 5 this week. Welcome to episode 668 of the Barcelona podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Nate Hilton, and between the watch-alongs, the 5 headlines, specialty YouTube content that you're going to be seeing soon, as well as the announcement of the big event, Peñapalooza, the very first annual Peñapalooza, hopefully becomes an annual event. That's taking place at the end of this month. So with all that happening, I hope you are subscribed to the Barcelona podcast everywhere. That way you won't miss anything. As always, I appreciate the support, especially from my patrons. As low as $3, you can help support the show, as they do allow me to do extra shows like this, like the top 5 and specialty segments like that. So with that said, let's get into it. Here are the top 5 pieces of news from this week that I think you need to know. Our first piece of news is Borussia Dortmund next again. When Barcelona defeated Benfica, we had to wait an entire day to figure out who their opponent was going to be. And so it is indeed Borussia Dortmund against Barcelona, part 2 this season in the Champions League. But this time it's in the quarterfinals with different stakes. A valiant effort by Lille goalkeeper Lucas Chevalier, a 23-year-old who I think should be on Barca's short list of young goalkeepers they should look at. He kept Lille in the tie, but it wasn't enough. Jonathan David, another name linked with Barcelona, scored the opener to put Lille up 2-1 on aggregate, but a penalty and a winner in the second half gave Dortmund the 3-2 aggregate win. The nature of the win was a bit reminiscent of the 3-2 win by Barcelona at Signal Iduna Park earlier in the season. So very much like the Benfica rematch, I had felt like there'd be fireworks again, and I think you can expect a similar thing against Dortmund now in the quarterfinals. But as I said before I knew the winner between Lille and Dortmund, I do think that Barcelona are the favorites in the tie, but it will not be easy. You don't get into the round of 8 in the Champions League on a fluke, so Dortmund is not a team to overlook. Not at all. They still have to play the games. Fortunately for you, if you're a Barca fan, and actually fortunately for you if you're just watching this because you're a Borussia Dortmund fan, well, hello, please subscribe and do all those fun things, sure. But I and a Borussia Dortmund podcast will be doing a collaboration preview episode prior to that tie, and then we'll be breaking things down in the week between legs 1 and 2. So again, subscribe to the Barcelona podcast everywhere so you don't miss out on it. And while I don't want to look too far ahead, the other 3 matchups are Arsenal versus Real Madrid, PSG versus Aston Villa, as PSG dramatically got past Liverpool on penalties, and Bayern Munich versus Inter, with the winner of that one facing the winner of Barcelona versus Borussia Dortmund. The first leg for Barca Dortmund will be in Barcelona on Wednesday, April 9th, and the return leg in Germany on Tuesday, the 15th. So this tie is going to be taking place in less than a month already, and then a few weeks after that, it's a semifinal. So as I started this show with, I'm telling you again, this is big game season, so Barcelona has got to be in great form, and whether it's a good win or a loss or a draw, whatever it is, Barcelona being unbeaten and being on a hot run of form is definitely a good thing with all the big matches coming up. Our second piece of news deals with Raphinha, and it's some Raphinha Ballon d'Or momentum. I think at this point in the season, he does deserve some of it, and the reason I bring it up is because Thierry Henry, while talking on the CBS Sports Show here in the United States, about just how Raphinha has pushed his way into that conversation. And I know for us Kool-Aids, he wasn't in there even earlier this season. He may not be in that conversation looking at the way the team plays. We, I know, would love to put Pedri, Lamine Yamal, Cubarsí, knowing those 3 are essential to the way that Barcelona play. But for reasons almost directly related to numbers, those 3 are just not winning a major individual award like the Ballon d'Or just yet. They will be in the conversation, but the broader conversation, they will just have to keep enjoying, that being Lamine Yamal and Pedri, those Golden Boy awards in the interim. And the reason I bring up what Thierry Henry had to say is because, 1, when Thierry Henry talks, I do tend to listen. And 2, I think we're getting to a point where the Ballon d'Or hype for Raphinha might be getting as loud outside the club as it is within it. And I do say that because while I usually do not care about those individual awards, you know that it does feel like a popularity contest. I actually do feel like Raphinha making a case for himself, because he's not the traditional Brazilian winger and forward. He does have to do a little bit more, and he really did have to be that good to put himself in that conversation. And because there is no major international competition to highlight individual players this summer, and now having Liverpool, that is, Mohamed Salah, getting kicked out of the Champions League in the round of 16, that does open things up quite a bit for this conversation. Numerically, Vinny Jr. and Bellingham haven't been there this season, so even with the glow of Real Madrid, the field is a bit more open this season. Harry Kane and Ousmane Dembélé have joined Salah as contenders, and if Barca take home trophies this season, though, Henry is looking at the big games where Raphinha has scored goals and the total number of goal contributions as major parts of his argument. Henry said, Raphinha is ahead for me now. He is ahead because of what he's doing in the Champions League. He has 11 goals in the Champions League. Mo Salah is a great contender for it. Kane is a contender, and Dembélé. It depends if you perform in the Champions League on top of winning your league. Raphinha is on a lot of goals and with only 1 penalty. I'm not saying that Kane and Salah should not be having penalties. Mo Salah is having a season in the Premier League that we will never see again. I'm saying that if a guy has virtually the same amount of goals as you guys scored without penalties, I'm not going to say that is bad what you did. It is outstanding. But this guy, I have to talk a bit more about him. Raphinha, when people talk about being complete as a striker, you need to know about putting on pressure also and defend and help your fullback. And he has it all. I do love that Terry Henry also pointed out the defensive effort by Raphinha, because you add that defensive work rate that he has with the 27 goals and the 19 assists across all competitions. If Barcelona also win trophies this season, as in, the big ones, not to the Spanish Super Cup, that puts him firmly in the conversation. It has to. If you wind up being a player putting up those numbers on teams that win trophies at the highest level, yes, you're a Ballon d'Or candidate. That's it. So even if he's not really in the greater conversation, or he fades off in some way in this remaining months, or things don't work out, I just want to have this a little footnote that yes, he was in the conversation at this point in March in 2025, and he deserved to be there. Maybe at least for Kool-Aids, we can appreciate him just a bit more. Our third piece of news is a new name for you, Neiser Villarreal. It's a link. He's a 19-year-old Colombian striker playing for Millonarios in Colombia. And it's a name that you might not know, but it's a name to just put on your radar here for a second. Because while Barcelona can look at their attacking midfielders and especially their right-wing options down in the academy, things are looking a bit dry there for a future number 9. Due to Vitor Roque, Mark Yu both being out of the club now. Hugo Alba may not have his contract renewed, even though he's scoring a ton of goals in the youth sector this season. And Oscar Gustavo, who is probably the most promising actual number 9 in the academy right now. He's been out for a few months now. We don't know how he's going to recover from this injury. Should be coming back soon, but still, you can't put all your hope in who will, I think, next year be a 17-year-old kid. It just doesn't work that way. You do need to set yourself up for some other players in the interim. And even looking at Barca Athletic, they've been using Guy Fernandez as a false 9, or they've been surrounding a more stagnant number 9 like Ivan Cedric or Alan Godoy, who both probably don't have first-team potential. They've been the center forward answer this season there. So, of course, I don't need to tell you, with a 36-year-old Lewandowski not getting any younger, a center forward for the future should still probably be high on the priority list. So that is why the latest name, probably as a bargain, because you know that clubs around the world that have money to spend, they're just snatching talent from South America earlier and earlier for bigger numbers, and it takes some risk when you go in a South American market. So the risk for Barcelona would be for Villarreal, as I said, a 19-year-old center forward who was the top goal scorer at the 2025 South American U20 Championship with the 8 goals. He won't be renewing his contract with Millonarios, and yes, that is the Alfredo Di Stefano Millonarios for you history buffs. So a bunch of teams are looking around the player if he's not going to renew. And listen, if he does turn into a top center forward for Barcelona, having come from Millonarios, maybe it'll finally be time for me to put to bed that 70-year grudge that I hold for Millonarios and what happened in the Di Stefano saga, which you can find that history on the channel somewhere. Just type in the Barcelona podcast, Di Stefano, anywhere, and I'll have that story for you in multiple different videos over the years that I've covered. As for the player, he is raw. He has a pretty good right foot when it comes to goal scoring, but all those other pieces still need some work and refinement, which is why I know there are links, but I don't really take this one too seriously, because A, he probably won't be ready to contribute anytime soon, and B, he is optioned at first-team football, and other clubs may have that advantage over Barcelona if Barca just want to sign him for Barca Athletic at the start. The clubs that are linked to him are Porto, Newcastle, and Watford, and thinking back to James Rodriguez at Porto, it wouldn't be the first time a Colombian with big potential went from South America to the Portuguese side, so seems like that is the most likely fit for him. But as I said, it is likely something to keep an eye on. For our purpose, it is likely a non-story, but it does help me fill out the top 5 here. And potentially one that, hey, if it is a story, it'll pop off, and it'll be a good thing that we got it first. Our fourth piece of news here is Camp Nou lack of an update. So speaking of non-story, the update on the Barcelona stadium is a bit of a non-story. Vice president of the club, Elena Fort, said to El Suplement on Catalunya Radio, as of today, we will no longer set an exact date. The picture I'm giving you today, which could change in a week, is that the work is going at a great pace. Yesterday, we published the photos of the seats, of how they are being placed, and we are working on the issue of the grass. The interior is also very advanced. There are some delivery dates for the works, and we will assess at the appropriate time whether it is worthwhile to play the matches in May. Okay, so it's not bad news, but it's definitely not good news. We kind of knew this was coming when the extension for Montjuic was applied to, and we know that the club has been saying now for months that they would love to get back for the El Clasico in May. That's just a bit up in the air, and I wouldn't be too optimistic about it. The thing I am optimistic about, though, and I think the silver lining, is that because Barcelona are advancing as far as they are in the Champions League, and hey, if they do get to the semifinals, I am no mathematician, but I do believe that the money that they will have been awarded or have earned in the Champions League will likely offset or even be more than what they've lost in revenue, that being gate revenue from having to wait and delay the reopening of the Camp Nou. Because a reminder that winning does kind of solve everything, at least as we know when it came to Bartomeu and the like, it does solve things temporarily. But yes, financially, winning will solve quite a bit for FC Barcelona. Then getting back in that stadium, they will be in a much better spot financially before you know it. And then our fifth piece of news to talk about is kind of previewing the Sunday matchup against Atletico Madrid, which is huge. Atletico Madrid, is it going to be vengeance or is it going to be exhaustion? Because I was watching that Benfica-Barca match, and in hindsight, I am so thankful that Barcelona just took care of business. I didn't have anything to sweat about, anything to worry about. After watching Liverpool-PSG, no thank you to the nerves about that one, and then make it double for Real Madrid against Atletico Madrid. And what an awful week Diego Simeone and Atletico Madrid have had so far. Last weekend, they were up 1-0 on Adafe in the Liga in the 88th minute. Angel Correa gets a red card, which gets him suspended for a few games. And then Ambardi, who played well against Barca as well, he scored twice in 4 minutes to hand them the loss, that being Athletic. Then they meet their rivals in the Champions League, a place where they lost to them in the last 11 years in the quarterfinals, the semis, and twice in the final. And now they have to add the round of 16 to that list. And obviously, like you, if you're watching this top five on the Barcelona podcast, either YouTube channel or listening on the podcast apps, you know that I hate the way this happened. And you probably, if you've been with me long enough, know exactly what I'm going to say about it too. You know that I'm not going to be screaming about conspiracies or anything like that. But just like you, I hate that good things happen to a bad team in white over and over and over and over and over again, especially in the Champions League. Didn't Julian Alvarez touch the ball twice on his PK slip? UEFA has shown footage that pretty definitively says yes. Did it give him an advantage? Absolutely not. This is another stupid example, and I do emphasize the word stupid here, example of a law being a law. So yes, the correct result may have happened, but a result that gives the opposite consequence that the law was put in place for, which is have rules to better serve the integrity of the game. So we can have discourse about whether PKs is the way that you should be ending knockouts or whether you should take individual players off and lessen the number of players on the field in extra time, and that leaves more space and all those different things. So there are other solutions as well. And a lot of people don't like that PKs decide these knockouts. Take that up a notch and say a technicality on a PK is how a round of 16 eternal rival matchup between Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid winds up playing out. I just hate that, obviously. So now the question for Barcelona becomes, which Atletico Madrid and Diego Simeone side are you going to get hosting you on Sunday? Is it going to be a tired side that played extra time on Wednesday and just can't find their legs? Or will it be the side that knows they're down by 4 points to Barca in the league, with Barca still having a game in hand and having the fight and effort required to get any points and feeling like they deserve a win, ultimately, regardless of who it's against? We'll have to see, especially knowing that these two meet again in the second leg of the Copa del Rey on April the 2nd, so just a few short weeks away. All I know is that it is trophy season, everybody, so whether you watch at home with me on Big Up or you visit your local Peña, it is that fun time. Before I part, I ask you, what if you could do both? What if you could both enjoy time with your local Peña and hang out with them and hang out with me on Big Up? Well, there's an opportunity to do that, as I'm so happy that I got to announce this week, Peña Palooza. It's a big event taking place virtually on Big Up on April the 31st at 8:30 East Coast time. All Peñas are welcome, so if you're a member of a Peña or on a board or know your Peña, you don't see them on that list, get in touch with them. They can get in touch with me if I haven't already reached out. So I want everybody involved. If you don't see your name on it, this is an invite only. It's everybody being welcome, both fans, Peñas, culés, anybody. Everybody is welcome, and it's going to be a really great time. So set your calendars for that one, subscribe so you don't miss any updates, and I will see you on Sunday for Atleti versus Barca for the watch-along, and then the 5 headlines. Until then, and as always, Forza Barca.